Going to be talking with a local employer here in Caldwell County at the NCWorks Employer Business Chat. Today I want to welcome one of our employers from Baker's Waste Equipment, Miss Victoria Mabry. How are you doing, Victoria?
Well, good. We're just standing all the COVID and the social distance and this whole new era that everybody's in. So this is a new format. We're used to like in-person job fairs, but we go as we grow.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We're glad that you're with us today. So today I wanted to just talk a little bit about Baker's Waste Equipment with you. Just kind of have a chat about different things from Baker's Waste. So tell me just a little bit about the history of Baker's Waste Equipment, if you don't mind.
So what Baker's Waste is we manufacture metal waste container units. So those units would be something like you would see at an apartment complex or a restaurant. Those are our front load units that we manufacture, and then we manufacture what are called roll-off units in the industry. And those are like the units that you would see outside of a construction build site. And then we manufacture trash compactors or compactors, which a lot of times if you'll just ride around a business complex like a mall, you'll see them. They're enclosed and they compact cardboard or compact trash. We do manufacture like scrap hauling trailers as well. So all things metal waste containers, we manufacture those. We have been in business since 1983 and experiencing growth steady, which has been a good thing for our business. Even through the whole COVID situation, we have just been still going strong. So very thankful and appreciative of that in our industry.
Well, that is awesome. I know when I've driven by Baker's Waste, I always kind of like to look in the parking lot there because there's all different colors of those containers. And I can remember especially seeing that really pink colored one. I was like, wow, that is really neat. So I'm glad you mentioned the different kinds of containers because that's really cool. So tell me a little bit about where you are at here in the county.
So we're, as far as Caldwell County, we're located in Lenoir. For people who are familiar with Lenoir, it's referred to as the Whitnall area.
Okay. All right. So is that on Norwood Street?
Yes. So we're at 1808 Norwood Street Southwest, Lenoir, North Carolina, 28645. That's our physical address.
Okay, thank you. So how many employers does Baker's Waste employ right now?
So we currently have 5 employees, and we're growing strong with that number. We expect continued growth, and if everything's as planned, I see no reason why we shouldn't be inching into very near the 200 marker by possibly the end of the year or first quarter of next year.
Wow, so your business really is growing. That's awesome. So can you tell us just a little bit about the work environment that you have there at Baker's Waste?
Yeah, so our work environment is mainly composed, outside of our office environment and our sales environment, mainly our production environment is composed of MIG welders, machine operators, and industrial painters, and what we call utility drivers or forklift drivers. Of course, with the size of everything that we handle, we have pretty large forklifts, so this is a pretty skilled forklift driver that works in our arena. The jobs that we have are very physical jobs. We're very appreciative to every employee that we have that they work that job and they work that job with a smile. So we're very appreciative to all of our staff. There is some heavy lifting in the job. It's not necessarily steady all day long. We do have forklifts to help handle some of the weight, but every employee that we have is truly a hardworking employee that is not climate sensitive. In the shop, it gets hot in the summers and it's cold in the winter, so hardworking, non-climate sensitive employees.
Okay, good. That's great information. So what would an average work day be for an employee there at Baker's Waste?
Never a dull moment. We talked about how busy that we really do stay. We strive at meeting production expectations. Our pay, we're not a per piece pay, we're an hourly paid environment, but very much efficiencies account for each individual. And so we are driven really by productivity. Most of our units are a standard variation, and I say that because most of our units are standard, but customers will want something special on this one or that one due to where it's going to be located or what it's actually going to be doing. So while there is a standard unit, our employees are challenged with being able to switch and make those kind of special accommodations or special modifications on each unit. So it keeps you on your toes. Most of the changes are done in kind of like the final assembly process, but you're never going to have a slow day here for sure.
Good, good. Yeah, I can see that when, a lot of times having a fast day makes it go by faster, and a lot of people like that kind of thing. So I think that's awesome. Would you mind explaining to us some different job opportunities that you might have there at Baker's Waste?
Yes, so currently we have MIG welding positions available. There's different types of welding. MIG welding is basically a lot of times referred to as wire welding. So we have MIG welding positions available. Machine operators, preferably that have had experience in the metal industry. Some of our machines include shears, press brakes, saws, metal cutting and forming equipment. And then we have the industrial painters. Our industrial painters, they're spraying our units. So a lot of people who have ever worked in auto body and they've painted in the auto body world do really well in our environment because it's so similar. That's the most common thing that I can kind of compare that to. And then, of course, forklift drivers who have handled moving around heavy and bulky product.
Okay. Would you want somebody with forklift experience, or do you train people to use your own forklifts, or how does that work with the forklifts?
The forklift drivers, we really are looking for experience using a forklift. We do have some roles that we are willing to train the right individual. We have our own welding school on site, so we are willing to train the right individual on how to weld. Also, machine operators, sometimes if you have some good competency as it relates to measurements, like reading angles, reading a tape measure, and having the physical ability, you will still do well in our machine operating environment. And so we are willing to train the right individual, but certainly the forklift, it would just be too intimidating for someone who didn't have experience with the forklift to take on that size.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. So what shifts do you usually operate there?
So currently we're a first shift only facility. So our first shift, that is our regular shift, which is non-overtime, is going to be 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. We work overtime about 2/3 of the year, though, and we try to maintain an every other Saturday type of model to create, and cultivate that family life work balance. But when we're working overtime, our overtime schedules are Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., and then on Friday and Saturday, it would be a 7 a.m. to 3:30 on both that Friday and Saturday for the Saturdays that we are scheduled to work.
All right. Well, that sounds good. So you mentioned something about training. What does the training entail? And you said you had a welding school. Can you explain just a little bit about that to us?
So we were challenged a few years ago with noticing that the skilled labor that was in the available market had just decreased from years prior. And we started trying to look at what that was. And when we looked at what that was, at that time, a lot of the skilled trade programs that were available at the high school level, so like shop class that people used to have, some of those programs had been taken out for some time. I know they're coming back now, but they had been taken out for some time. So there was this gap in employees that really, they wanted a career and they wanted this special skill set, but they'd just never been trained on something specific. And so we thought, well, what better opportunity for us to train people who have that desire? And so we looked at what we would need. And so we assembled our own welding school. We have 3 cells that are individual welding cells that have cranes in them and everything that you would use in the process. So we have our own welding school. There's competency models, so it takes you through the math, it takes you through the safety, it takes you through the welding principles, and really teaches you at the end of a 2-week time period on how to produce basic welds. Of course, you're not going to have the speed there. The speed's going to come with time, but we understand that and have kind of put that into our production model as well, as far as ramping up throughout a time period. So how to better know that it works? Clearly, I work in an office. I haven't really touched production equipment. However, I've been around it. So I said, well, if it can teach me how to weld, I think we have a successful program. So I put on the shop gear and I went out there and did the welding program, and it taught me how to weld. So I think we have a program there.
That is awesome. That is really neat. So you could weld.
Add that to my list of tricks now.
That is absolutely awesome. I admire you for doing that. That's really cool. Are there any kind of advancement that people can do, like employment advancement opportunities? If you start at the bottom, can you work your way up, or how would that work? Do you ever have that kind of situation where people start and they go through the training program and then they work their way up to supervisor or something like that?
Yes, absolutely. We are a type of organization where we would actually prefer to promote from within versus hire from the outside. For anything that's not an entry-level position, we would rather that come from internally and just fostering and cultivating a culture around that employee appreciation. So when you start here, no matter if you're a machine operator or a welder, you start as an apprentice in your job. And so you can grow from an apprentice to a journeyman. You can grow from a journeyman to a master, and you can grow from a master to a lead. And that's just the lateral growth that you can experience in one line of the career. So if it was a welder, you could go from a apprentice welder to a journeyman welder to a master welder to a lead welder. But we also embrace growth outside of that. So if somebody was willing to go to a few courses, we like to use the Employers Association, and we work very closely with Caldwell Community College on some of our trainings as well, and they've been very good about helping us give employees more knowledge to grow outside of even their original trained area. So I have employees that work here today that are a supervisor that started out as a welder with the company. So absolutely there is, I would say the sky's the limit, but I guess the roof's the limit. Anywhere in here you want to be, you can go.
Sure, that I think that's great because a lot of people do want to know that if I start here, where do I go? And I think that's wonderful that you guys really have that built into your program there. So can you tell us a little bit about any of the pay rates, or is it based on experience, or are there any standard salaries that you promote there at Baker's Waste Equipment?
Of course, we talked about that we were willing to train the right individual who maybe comes in with no experience and train them. So our entry-level pay, depending if you have absolutely no experience and we're training you from ground up, per to say, or if you come in with a few years of experience, typically where we'll bring somebody in at as a new employee is somewhere in the $13 an hour to $16 an hour pay range. Again, depending upon that experience, knowledge, and things of that nature.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds good. Do you offer benefits there at Baker's Waste? Any kind of benefits that you offer?
Yes, absolutely we do. We have a very healthy medical benefits program. So we have the options between two different medical plans that you can elect for. For those, depending on the coverage, the employee portion of it for our employees, we cover 80% of their premium. So that's kind of not, I'm not going to say it's unheard of, but it's not typical. So we do cover a lot of the employee coverage. And then you can add on spouses, children, and things of that nature. So we have that as far as medical goes. We have dental, we have vision, we have disability, both short-term and long-term disability. We have accident insurance, critical illness insurance. We have a telemedicine policy that we pay for all of our employees and their eligible family members. We have 401k, which helps employees save for, we want them to be employed here their entire career, so it helps them save up for post-career plans, that retirement piece. And then we also have paid time off as far as we have some paid holidays and paid vacation and things of that nature.
Good. Sounds like you have a good benefits package there. That's awesome to hear. So if somebody wanted to apply for a job there, what is your application process like right now?
Right now, due to COVID safety, we are not accepting applicants on the facility as we normally would. You normally could come into the office, but due to COVID safety, we're trying to really minimize our exposure. So the best way to put in an application is to email your resume to me directly, which is vmabry@bwe-nc.com. If you don't have computer capabilities, but you do have access to a cell phone, you could always text the word application to 828-228-6659. Or if you have a friend who's maybe printed out a couple of resumes for you, or maybe you've had some printed out at a local like NCWorks office center or something, you can always mail in your resume to our physical address, which is the 1808 Norwood Street Southwest, Lenore, North Carolina 28645.
Okay, I am going to share the screen here just a second if somebody were to see this and want to jot down your email address and that text and phone number. And sure, if somebody wanted an application that was, a printed application, if they would reach out to us at NCWorks, we'd be glad to help them with that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share that information with, just so we have that up here. 1 second here. So this is the information that you just mentioned as far as submitting the resume to your email address and texting the Word application. So tell me a little bit about that. So if they text the Word application to that phone number, what happens when they do that?
If it's just easy for them, maybe they're going down the road or they're out of town, they're not at home where they have their resume, they can text the Word application. As soon as I get that Word, I'm going to reach out to that phone number. And then I'm going to ask them, would you like for me to call and do a phone interview with you, or would you like to email your resume in? If the person has no availability to a computer, we understand that not everybody has that, and so we'll just call and we'll walk through and do a phone interview with them and ask them all the questions about their employment history and their education and things of that nature. Or they can save a little bit of time if they would like to email their resume in so that we can review that stuff prior to, and then I'll give them my email address at that time as well. So it really just prompts me to reach out to you and contact you and see what's the best method for you to work your way through our application process.
Okay, that's pretty neat, actually. I think that's awesome. So I notice here on the screen that I've shared, it talks about that you guys do have the MIG welders. You have several openings in that, metal fabrication, machine operators, finishing. Is the finishing associates like the painters and things? That's what they do?
Our final process before everything goes into shipping is the finishing, and so that's where the painting is done.
Gotcha. Okay, that sounds good. You can reach out to Baker's Waste for additional information, but those jobs are also found on ncworks.gov. If anybody wanted to take a look at those, we have them listed there too. So I want to say thank you to you for talking with me today, for us just chatting about, what's going on at Baker's Waste. And I appreciate you being on here.